Hey, everybody. Here is Petty Politics here. Welcome to the show. You guys see the moniker on the thumbnail. The map is lying. The map is lying. So let me ask this question, and nobody seems to be asking it. What happens if all these little warning signs we keep saying are actually connected to these maps, with these maps? Because for the last few months, we've been told that the Republicans are in complete control, that Donald Trump won, that the Democratic Party is in disarray, and that the 2026 is basically over before it even begins. But when you step back and actually look at those maps, something very different starts to emerge. One of the things I always tell people is that I don't trust any single measurement by itself. I don't trust one poll. I don't trust one pundit on cable television. I don't trust one analyst who is convinced that they have everything figured out. What I like to do is to look at the entire picture. I want to know what polling says. I want to know what the election experts say. And I want to know what prediction markets are saying, because prediction markets involve people literally putting their money behind what they think will happen. So, and right now, all three of those things are beginning to tell a different story. So let's listen to this.
That are currently considered safe for each party. For Democrats, that includes Oregon, Colorado, Hawaii, Minnesota, Illinois, Maryland, New York, Massachusetts, Connecticut, and Rhode Island. And there are really no surprises here. With the exception of Minnesota, each of these states backed Kamala Harris by a double-digit margin in 2024. The only potential question mark is Rhode Island, where Democratic Governor Daniel McKee consistently polls as one of the most unpopular governors in the country, but he is likely to lose the primary to businesswoman Helena Folkes, and Republicans have been shut out of Rhode Island politics for so long that they are unlikely to field a particularly strong challenger anyway.
So, the story is not that Democrats are guaranteed to take back the Senate or anything like that. Let's be honest, this map is still very difficult for the Democrats, but there is now a very visible pathway, and it's exactly the pathway that many political analysts have been talking about for months. I get it. If Democrats can hold what they already have and flip a handful of key battle states, they can get to 51 states and regain control. Now, think about where those opportunities exist on that map. Georgia, North Carolina, Ohio, Michigan, Maine, New Hampshire, Alaska. Then you have states like Texas and Iowa that are now in play, that suddenly became competitive enough that Republicans have to spend money. So when a Republican has to go and spend money in a state that they normally thought it was safe, like Iowa and Texas, because they got people like Ken Paxton, and they got people, I don't know what type of people they got running in Iowa. I don't know. All I know is it became very competitive for the Democrats. Once the Republicans have to spend money, that means they're losing. And in darn near every state, every race, they have been putting money into the races because they understand that it's a bloodbath that may be coming. This is the part that people should pay attention to. When the party in power is forced to defend territory that should be safe, some of this territory should be safe. For example, Georgia. This is no longer some fantasy state for Democrats. Democrats can get Georgia. Democrats can get Georgia. Let me play this clip. Let me play this clip. Hold on.
Let's wrap up in Georgia, where Republican Governor Brian Kemp is term limited. The state has become one of the most competitive in the country at the presidential level, and forecasters are expecting another razor-close race here in 2026 between Democratic nominee Keisha Lance Bottoms and whoever emerges from the Republican runoff between Lieutenant Governor Burt Jones and healthcare executive Rick Jackson. Jones finished first in the primary with 38% of the votes and carries the endorsement of President Donald Trump, making him the clear favorite to win the runoff. That said, Jackson would probably be the more electable candidate in a general election. Right now, prediction markets have the race essentially dead even, with Bottoms at 51% and the eventual Republican nominee at 46%. Personally, I'm inclined to agree with that assessment, which is why Georgia remains a pure toss-up on my map for now.
So Georgia has already shown that it can elect Democratic senators under the right conditions. The state is changing demographically. The Atlanta suburbs continue to grow, and younger voters continue to reshape the electorate. Republicans simply cannot take Georgia for granted anymore. Then you look at North Carolina. Democrats have been knocking on the door in North Carolina for I don't know how long, years. They've come close over and over and over again. And every election cycle, the margins seem to get tighter and tighter. It only takes a small movement among suburban voters or independent voters to push that state over the line. Ohio is another example. Republicans have treated Ohio like it permanently belongs to them now. But voters are more complicated than that. The state just voted to protect abortion rights. And there are signs that economic frustrations are creating opportunities in there that Democrats can reconnect with the working class voters. Inflation, housing, healthcare, and the overall cost of living affect people regardless of party label. The problem is this administration took us down the wrong direction. That's the problem. This Republican Party took us down the wrong direction. They took us down the wrong map because we didn't want to go down a global or international route. We wanted to go down the domestic route. We wanted to get domestic stuff in order. We wanted to get our domestic house in order. And Donald Trump went down the wrong route.
So at this point, I project Republicans to hold 26 governorships compared to 23 for Democrats with one toss-up. That'll probably change over the next few months, but as always, let me know your thoughts in the comments. Shout out to my channel members listed in the description. Fire as Democrats.
I don't know, something went off. Okay. So, Ohio. Then there's Alaska. A lot of people ignore Alaska because it's geographically isolated. But politically, it has become one of the most unpredictable states in the country. Under the right circumstances, Democrats could absolutely make that race competitive. But what really caught my attention about this and the states that can flip Democratic is the fact that states like Texas are no longer being discussed as completely safe Republican territory. And you guys know why it's not completely safe? Because of your guy, Ken Paxton, and the fact that Donald Trump decided that he was going to endorse this completely flawed character and then put him up as a person we should vote for.
Arizona as lean blue. Next is a toss-up between Iowa and Ohio, the Midwest tandem that have followed identical political trends over the last 2 decades. Let's start in Ohio, where Governor Mike DeWine is term limited, and former 2024 presidential candidate Vivek Ramaswamy just secured the Republican nomination in a landslide. He'll face Democrat Amy Acton, and while most forecasters still give Ramaswamy the edge on Ohio's fundamentals, as it did just vote for President Trump by 11 points, the polls show a very, very close race, with Ramaswamy leading by an average of less than 2 points across these poll averages. Though it's worth keeping in mind that historically speaking, Republicans have consistently overperformed the polls here. So I've got Ohio leaning Republican on the map. Iowa is in a similar position. Like Ohio, it voted for Obama twice, then shifted sharply toward Trump, backing him by wide margins in 3 straight elections. In 2026, Republican Governor Kim Reynolds is retiring, and considering she was one of only 2 governors in the country with an underwater approval rating, her departure may actually help Republicans, as they are now expected to nominate Congressman Randy Feenstra. That said, Democrats have a very, very strong nominee in State Auditor Rob Sand, who is the only Democrat to win statewide in Iowa this decade, and all 3 polls released so far have Sand leading Feenstra, including this most recent survey by Echelon Insights in early April that has Sand up 12 points. The Cook Political Report has the race down as a toss-up, and VoteHub's newly released forecast has Iowa tilting blue. While both Inside Elections and Sabato's Crystal Ball lean on the fundamentals, rating it lean Republican. Personally, I have the race down as only tilting toward the GOP, as even in a blue wave, Sand will still need to overperform those fundamentals by at least 6 points.
So in Texas, Republicans could assume that they would win in Texas comfortably. Now, because of the candidates' quality, because of political baggage, and because voters are exhausted by scandal after scandal after scandal, there's serious conversations about whether the race could tighten for the Democrat, Tallarico. The Republican nominee carries controversy into the election. Controversy has a funny way of depressing enthusiasm among your own base, and some people may still vote Republican. Now that if Tallarico does not win in Texas, that means the Republicans in Texas don't care about integrity. They don't care about the integrity of the office of the office of the Senate. They don't care about any integrity because Ken Paxton has none. Okay, they have none. So some people may vote Republican, but they may not be excited enough to show up. Others may simply stay home. And in close elections like this is going to be, because all of the enthusiasm is on Tallarico's side. Those close margins are going to matter. Iowa is another interesting case. Nobody knows exactly where Iowa's headed because the polling has been limited. Remember when it was a couple years ago, it was 2023, I think. And it was this pollster lady who Donald Trump tried to sue because she said that Iowa was going to go Democratic. Y'all remember that? This is where her prediction is coming through. Maybe she stretched it out a little bit longer than what needed to be. I don't know. But it looks like Iowa is coming into its own and it's going to be red. We don't know. Nobody knows exactly where Iowa's heading to. But the fact that analysts are even discussing it tells you something about the national environment. Republicans are having to defend more territory than they probably expected that they ever would. And then you have Nebraska, where an independent candidate could potentially complicate the math even further. Even if Democrats do not win the seat outright, an independent victory changes the balance because it potentially takes a reliable Republican seat off the board. Now, I think there's a bigger lesson here that goes beyond any individual state. Elections are rarely decided by one big dramatic event. They're usually decided by hundreds of little frustrations that people have that build up over time. Families are tired of paying more for groceries. They're tired of paying high housing costs. They're tired of feeling like they're working harder and getting less. And when voters are frustrated, they start looking around for somebody to blame. The party in power is always the person that carries that blame and that burden. Republicans right now control the White House and both chambers of Congress. Whether they think it's fair or not, voters will evaluate them based on what it looks like in 2026. If affordability has not improved, if healthcare is still expensive, if economic anxiety is still widespread like it is, then voters may decide they want to check this power. Historically, midterm elections often become exactly that, a referendum on the party currently running Washington. That's why I think this prediction market that is worth paying attention to. Not because it guarantees anything, but because it reflects what people believe they already know. See, the problem is Donald Trump took us down the wrong direction. You went all the way to the right. We went to war. We got tax cuts. You crashed the economy. All of these things, you went down the wrong direction, wrong map for the country. This country wanted relief. This country wanted economic relief. The people wanted relief from rent, groceries, food, gas. They wanted relief from those things. And Donald Trump just walked us straight into a headache of a different kind. Now we're in a war. Now we are pledged to give tax cuts. We're pledged to do all of these things, tax cuts, Pentagon money, all of these things. And now we have no money to do the things that we need to do. And currently, they're about to cut Social Security, disability benefits for veterans, Medicaid, Medicare. They're about to cut all of those things, all of those supposed entitlement programs for the disabled, for the veterans, for the elderly, for the poor, for women and children. They're about to cut all of those things, which has been their goal from day one. The Republicans don't want to give the poor people or anybody else or the handicapped or the veteran, they don't really want to fund anything related to entitlement programs. They don't want to give, you know how you're a disabled veteran and you get, like, for example, I don't know, you're a disabled veteran, you get like $5,000 a month. They're going to cut it down to $4,000 a month. They're going to cut those benefits now. They're looking to cut those, and it's in the news now. So I'm not telling a lie. It's just a matter of you looking up exactly what they're talking about cutting entitlement-wise. They keep saying food stamps and Medicaid and all that. They really mean the elderly, the veterans, the poor, and the children. They really mean all of those programs they're going to cut. Okay. Let me play this video. Let me play this part. Uno momento.
Competitive states in the country. Back to the Midwest in Michigan, where Detroit Mayor Mike Duggan has just dropped his independent bid for governor, a major development in a race that most forecasters currently rate as a pure toss-up. With incumbent Gretchen Whitmer term limited, Democrats are expected to nominate Secretary of State Jocelyn Benson, while Republicans are likely to counter with Congressman John James. We do not yet have any head-to-head polling between Benson and James since Duggan exited the race. Earlier surveys showed Benson leading James by roughly 5 points. But with around 20% of voters backing Duggan, there is still a substantial share of the electorate waiting to be redistributed between the two major party candidates. Prediction markets appear to believe that redistribution will favor Democrats. Their odds have surged to 83% on Kalshi since Duggan dropped out, and much of that comes down to the fundamentals. Michigan's partisan lean is essentially even in a neutral environment, but Democrats are likely to benefit from a favorable national climate, and they have also performed consistently well in non-presidential statewide races here over the past decade. So for now, I have Michigan tilting Democratic.
So, unlike traditional polling, which can sometimes be a week or two old by the time you see it, prediction markets adjust in real time. People are constantly updating their expectations based on news, candidate announcement, fundraising, and the political climate. Of course, none of this means Democrats can get comfortable. Of course, we're still months away from these races. Campaigns will make mistakes. Candidates will stumble. The economy could improve or worsen. Unexpected events always reshape elections. Here's the thing. Tonight is also an election night. Tonight is an election night. What have the polls told you tonight? Are the Democrats winning tonight? Do the Democrats have an advantage tonight? This should be a very alarming thing for the Republicans. If we're winning in this many states, Democrat after Democrat after Democrat is winning, that means the direction that the president is going, the country no longer wants to go. And it's not like this administration wanted to turn around and say, okay, let me autocorrect. I know the country doesn't want me to be in the war. Let me try to get out of this war. Well, the country doesn't want all of these policies and procedures. They don't want to give away money to the rich. They don't want to give away $1 billion to the slush fund to January 6 people. The American people don't want to do a ballroom or WWF on the White House lawn. Let me pull back. This administration has decided that they aren't going to pull back on any of these things. And most Americans don't want these things happening. So since the Republicans won't stop the president, we need a check on the presidential power. People think the president needs a check on his power, and they don't trust the Republicans to do it. And the Republicans aren't going to do it. Historically, they've never done it. They've never said no to their president. It was when it was overwhelming evidence that they had to go to their president, Richard Nixon, and say, hey, President Nixon, it's over. Trump walking out on interviews, them saying they're going to cut Medicaid, Medicare, them having meltdowns in meetings, in House committee meetings, all of these things. And the Republicans are charging forward with an agenda that the Americans don't want. Okay? That the Americans don't want, okay? But if I was a Republican strategist, I would be worried tonight. The fact that people are seriously taking the Democrats and making them candidates, giving them pass in Georgia, giving them pass in North Carolina, Ohio, Maine, and Alaska, the alarm bell should be going off in Texas right about now. Because if Democrats can pull together that kind of coalition, and if they, without doing shit, because Democrats ain't got shit for a message. Democrats ain't got shit for a message. They got amazing candidates, but they ain't got shit for messages. They got amazing candidates talking about bread and butter issues, talking about helping the American people, talking about turning around this disastrous direction that the president has taken us in. The Republicans should have auto-corrected a year ago, but they haven't. Okay? But the Democrats keep the conversation on affordability, healthcare, everyday economic struggles instead of getting distracted by the latest political circus. The problem is the Republican Party only has cultural issues to run on. They always bring up, well, they're gay, the gay people, or the trans people, or they're vegan people, or he's sexting his ex-girlfriend, or he was sexting on his wife. The Republicans always want to run on cultural issues that have nothing to do with the country. The country needs to autocorrect. We need to get out of the war. We need to pull back the tax cuts that we gave to the rich. We need to pull those back because those can be pulled back. You do know that, right? We can rescind those tax cuts, right? And get the money back that we spent for that. We can see about getting universal health care for everybody. We can do something for the country. We can do something for the people. It's only a matter of will. It's only a matter of if the people have enough power behind them to say, we want these things done. Okay? We want these things done. If the map begins to look very, very, very favorable to the Democrats, and so far it has been, it's going to be a bloodbath for the Republicans. At the end of the day, this is not really about prediction markets, right? It's not really about the polls. It's not even really about the Senate math. It's about whether the American people feel that the country is moving in the right direction, and 75% feel like this country is moving in the wrong direction. 75% believe that we're moving in the wrong direction. Okay? If they decide the answer is yes, and we want to correct that, we want to correct how the country is moving. If people decide that in November, then it's going to be a bloodbath. History tells us they usually will look for balance. When the country goes so far left or so far right, we need an autocorrection. They're looking for what has happened to their lives. Most voters are saying, this is what happened. Donald Trump did this, and this. Donald Trump put $5 billion or $5 trillion in debt on the American people. Donald Trump got us into a war. Donald Trump made the American people poorer, knocked people off health care, about to cut food stamps, Medicaid, Medicare for veterans, old people, and children. About to cut those people off. It was in the news. Donald Trump has taken us down so many avenues that are wrong for the American people. Once people decide that he's gone down the wrong track, it's completely over. That's why Donald Trump's ratings are in the dumps, are in the toilet. Because most people, 75% of us, think he's taking us down the wrong track, and we need to autocorrect. And we need to do that in the midterm elections, because the midterm elections need to send a message. That is why I would not dismiss these numbers when people say, oh, well, we're not going to believe that. Oh, you better believe these numbers. You better believe these numbers. You better believe these figures on this map. Okay? Don't dismiss these battleground states. Don't dismiss North Carolina. Don't dismiss South Carolina. We're not saying South Carolina is going to turn red, but Lindsey Graham may lose his damn seat. Okay? Lindsey Graham may lose his seat. I believe Democrats have a more than fair shot to get the Senate and to get the House. Now, my thing is this. Can Donald Trump be impeached if we get the House? Do you think after Donald Trump primary about 4 or 5 Republicans, you think that 4 or 5 Republicans won't go along with impeaching the president? You think they won't? Mitch McConnell ain't running the Senate anymore. There's no Mitch McConnell anymore to tell people that they don't need to vote their conscience. Because that's what happened when Donald Trump was in a position 2 times to be impeached. Mitch McConnell begged the Republicans. He begged the Republicans not to go along with the Democrats and impeach Donald Trump. They wanted to impeach Donald Trump. They had the votes to impeach Donald Trump in the Senate. Mitch McConnell begged the Republicans not to go along with the Democrats and impeach Donald Trump. I don't know whether he would be able to convince them this time not to impeach Donald Trump, because I'm pretty sure when the Democrats get into office that they're probably going to impeach this president regarding enriching himself in the White House, the emoluments clause, taking us to war without permission, putting tariffs on other countries when he had no permission. I believe these things will happen if the Democrats become in power. Okay. The 2026 race will look way different from what it did in 2024. Okay. These maps keep moving the way that they're moving. Republicans may wake up on election night and discover the states that they thought were safely theirs are now in the Democratic column. I'm not saying it's going to happen. What I am saying is the Republicans have lost favor and have lost ground with the American people. Now, none of this means Democrats should start measuring the drapes in the majority leader's office. There's a long road between now and November 2026. Candidates will make those mistakes. Look at Graham. Look at that Planter guy in Maine. Let's see how the guy Planter did this evening. We don't know. I haven't looked it up. Okay. I haven't looked up and seen if Plattner won. Graham Plattner. Did Graham Plattner win? I don't know. Okay, he did win. Plattner won. Okay. So they don't care. They don't care about all of these side things that they try to put on Plattner. He won his race, which means Susan Collins is in trouble in Maine. Okay. Candidates make mistakes, like I said. Him texting, him doing whatever. He has an explanation for it. Campaigns will implode. Look at Ken Paxton, the worst candidate that has ever been nominated by anyone, and he's going up against Tallarico, who seems to be very much on the straight and narrow, religious, very, very normal, everyday American. And we have this character up against this character. It should be interesting what Texans decide. Will Texans decide that this is too much of a liability to put in the Senate, this Ken Paxton, and give themselves a try with Tallarico? Unexpected events will change the whole conversation. They always do. But if I'm a sitting Republican, if I'm sitting in the Republican headquarters tonight, I'm not celebrating anything. I'm looking at that Senate map that suddenly requires me to defend Georgia, suddenly requires me to defend North Carolina, Ohio, Maine, Alaska, and Texas. I'm watching states that should be automatically given to me as a Republican. Those should be automatic wins, have just become expensive headaches. And I'm wondering how many resources I have to spend protecting ground that was never supposed to be in danger. Donald Trump put Texas on the map. Donald Trump put Texas on the map by nominating Paxton. Because the dirty little secret about politics is that momentum matters. And Tallarico has momentum. Turk in Iowa has momentum. Plattner in Maine has momentum. Voters don't wake up one morning and all move in the same direction. The ground shifts slowly when that happens. And the ground has been shifting since Donald Trump put tariffs on us as a country. Donald Trump did that. Nobody did that. Donald Trump took us down this pathway. Donald Trump took us down the stairway. Donald Trump took us down this skippity-loo, my loo, how he thought the country was supposed to go, and he miscalculated the direction the country wanted to go. He miscalculated what the people were trying to say. And the people who voted for him miscalculated as well. Okay? One issue here, one scandal there. Donald Trump sleeping in meetings. Donald Trump going off on reporters. Donald Trump calling women Miss Piggy. Donald Trump getting us into wars. Donald Trump spending our money like a sailor. Donald Trump pledging $10 billion here, $10 billion there. You got all the money in the world, but we don't have no money for healthcare. We don't have no money for free lunches for the kids. We don't have no money for free college. We don't have no money to do a progressive tax structure. We don't have any money to raise the minimum wage. We don't have any of that. But we got plenty of money to give slush funds. We got plenty of money to give wars. Brazil, Argentina. Donald Trump enriching himself. What happened to that Venezuela oil money? What happened to that money? That money went right into Donald Trump's pocket. We ain't heard nothing about that oil money ever since. One economic disappointment after the other. Then, before anybody in Washington notices, what looks like a safe political landscape for the Republicans becomes a minefield. That's why I think so many people are misreading 2026. They're looking at a map built on yesterday's assumptions while the political environment underneath has changed in real time. When those states decided that they were going to erase those black congressional seats, Donald Trump didn't get 2 people killed in the street in Minnesota. Donald Trump didn't count on a Renee Good and a Alex Petty. Donald Trump didn't anticipate that the country would turn against the ICE people, the ICE raids. He didn't anticipate that. Yes, we want immigration control. Yes, we want border control, but we don't want it at the cost of people's lives and people's dignities. We just don't. Okay? We just don't. The Republicans cannot treat states as if they belong to them forever, because this election is going to show them that that is not true. Even though the voters have been telling us for years that they're willing to change their minds, look at tonight's results. I haven't even looked at tonight's results. The only result I've looked at tonight is that Graham Plattner in Maine, and he won. That ought to tell you the way the direction of the country is going. That ought to tell you. Okay? The prediction markets are not crystal clear. Polls are not prophecy. I get that. But these are warning signs to Republicans that the agenda that you want to put forward, crashing the economy, giving tax cuts to the rich when we can't even afford to get health care. We can't even afford to get free lunch. We can't even afford to change our tax situation. We can't even afford to raise the minimum wage. We can't even afford groceries, gas, and rent. The direction this administration is taking us, people are saying no, no, no. There are flashing indicators. All of these races are flashing indicators that something is afoot. The economy, affordability, healthcare costs, and plain old voter exhaustion are creating political conditions that don't fit the neat little story that we're going to be told. No, there is no cheating. There is no rigged elections. It's just the American people rejecting the Republican agenda outright. Rejecting the Republican agenda outright. Okay? And maybe that's the biggest mistake the insiders are making. They think the map tells the story. I think the map is lying. I think the map is even worse for Republicans. I think this map is even worse for Republicans. Okay? I think it's going to be a bloodbath. That's what I think. Okay? I believe it's going to be a bloodbath. Because if the public decides the country is heading in the wrong direction, and apparently the country does think we're heading in the wrong direction, they won't care what the experts predict. They won't care what the television panels said 6 months earlier about Trump did this and Trump did that. They don't care. People care about their food, their gas, their rent, no free college, no free food, no free health care, and other countries are getting free health care, and they're less rich than we are, and we can't get anything here at home domestically, people are saying no. On top of the immigration thing, people are saying no. Okay? People will do what Americans have done throughout modern political history. They will use the midterms to slam on the brakes. They will slam on the brakes. And God help Donald Trump if we get the Senate and the House. If Democrats get the Senate and the House, Donald Trump will be impeached. He will be impeached. You all just have to go over to the Megyn Kelly show, the Joe Rogan show. That's all you have to do is go over there and listen to them talk. I didn't know he was going to be this corrupt. We didn't know he was going to be on the take like he's on the take. We didn't know he was going to do this to the American people. We didn't know he was going to throw the American people under the bus. Yes, all of those people did know. You, as the regular American consumer and the MAGA person, you didn't know. But they should have told you that this was a scammer, that this president was a grifter, and that he was going to take and take and take, enrich himself throughout his whole administration, and enrich all of his friends. This is stuff that's obvious. If you do reading, if you do research, you can see that this is what has been happening. Okay? This is what has been happening. And if people want to slam on the brakes for the midterm, a whole lot of politicians are going to wake up the next morning after the election, staring at the Senate map. They thought they understood. Okay? The map they thought they understood. Okay? Looking at this map. The map they thought they understood. Only to realize that the ground has shifted right out from under their feet. And then it's over. That it's over for the Republican Party. And if you get back in power, you guys ought to be lucky. One thing the Democrats will do is pull back those tax cuts. One thing the Congress will do, withdraw from this fight, withdraw from this war that we're in. It's not a war. According to them, it's not a war, but it really is a war. There's many things. From day one, the person that becomes president will nullify every executive order that Donald Trump has put into place. Nullify every executive order. Okay? Any side is better than this side. Any side is better than this side. There's nothing but downside on this side of the coin. Sure I am. I'm always spreading false propaganda. You're goofy, Chris, and you need to learn how to read. Okay? You need to learn how to read. Go to the election results tonight. What did the election results say tonight? Did Graham Plattner, did he win his race? Graham Plattner wins his main Democratic primary. What else happened? Who else won? Okay? That should tell you how the direction of this country is going. That should tell you what Democratic wins tonight. Okay? Democratic election wins. Democrats win big. I don't know. Maybe all the results haven't come in. I don't know. Okay? But look at the results tonight. Specifically in Iowa, all of these small little districts, these small little towns, all of these little things. Okay? All of those things. Anything that we can do, anything the Democrats can do is 100% better than what's going on right now. 100% better. Okay? Anything that the Democrats can do is 100% better. If you don't know what Democrats stand for, I said it throughout this whole program. free college, free health care, a progressive tax strategy, raising the minimum wage, changing the Constitution, changing the number of the people on the Supreme Court, so it's a fair and balanced Supreme Court. Those 5 things alone make us better than what the Republicans have going on. Pull the money back from those tax cuts. Those tax cuts that Donald Trump put into place can be rescinded. I'll be looking for whoever is the Democratic president who comes next. I will be looking for him to pull those back. I will be looking for him to nullify the bulk of Donald Trump's executive orders. Okay. And if we get the Senate and if we get the House, if we get the Senate and we get the House, Donald Trump will be impeached because he deserves to be impeached. He deserved to be impeached the first time. Okay. He deserved to be impeached the first time and the second time. Mitch McConnell begged the Republicans not to impeach him, not to go along with the Democrats and impeach him. The whole of America saw the criminal mastermind behind Donald Trump. He's trying to erase all of that. You cannot erase what we saw. You cannot erase January 6th. We're not giving January 6th people money, no way, shape, or form. Okay. And my whole point, then you're more delusional than I think, Chris 601, if you decided that Donald Trump's presidency was going to be the standard that you picked up. Because everything that he put into place has been tax cuts for the rich, crashing the economy, and starting a war. That's what Republicans do. Every Republican in the last 30 years, that is what they have done. Crash the economy, tax cuts for the rich, and started wars. And the Democrats have always been better for this country's economy than the Republicans. Under a Democratic rule, the country thrived under Democratic rule compared to a Republican rule. It's just a fact. Go read about it. Do whatever you got to do. Okay? It doesn't matter whether it's free. It doesn't matter whether it costs money. It doesn't matter. Anything is better than what we're going through right now. Okay? I appreciate you guys showing up. I appreciate. No, I don't care whether you won. Your disastrous results show me that we were correct. The disastrous results that Donald Trump put into place for this country shows us that we were correct. The canary in the coal mine was 92% black women. We told you this was going to happen. We knew this was going to happen. We predicted that this was going to happen. We were the only demographic group that said, ain't no way that man should be president. We're the only demographic that said that. Okay? That said that. Good for you, Jim Dwyer. Go on over there and be with Donald Trump. Do your thing. Go down that rabbit hole where our country goes broke. We're in wars. We can't afford nothing domestically. We can't afford our veterans, our elderly, our handicapped. All these people get cut off aid, get cut off help. Go on over there, Jim Dwyer. Go on over there. Okay? No, I don't get caught in the cultural war. This is the things that the Republicans do. You guys get caught in the cultural war. Nobody's talking about gay pride. Nobody's talking about whatever cultural war thing, that goofy shit that you Republicans come up with. Nobody's looking at that. We're looking at the state of the country, the economics of the country. Okay? The economics of the country. We can't afford a war. We can't afford what we're doing. We can't afford the ICE, the money that goes to ICE. We can't afford the attack on the immigration. Obama never had to raise money for the immigration, and he deported more people. That tells me it's a slush fund going on. Donald Trump is funneling that money somewhere else, maybe to his friends, maybe to his sons, maybe to his dog. Who knows? That's what that tells me. Obama did more deportation, and he didn't ask for more money. He didn't keep going for more money, not like this president. So that tells me that this president is funneling money somewhere to a bunch of his friends. But it is what it is. See, and that's my whole thing. We don't care. We Democrats are not concerned about the cultural war. I hear the DEI, all of that. No, you guys didn't care about the sex thing. Y'all don't care about nothing else but cultural stuff. You don't care about the country. You don't care about the fact that we can't afford college. You don't care about the gas prices, the food prices. You don't care about any of that. You just care about worshiping Donald Trump. So keep worshiping Donald Trump, because we're going to move forward with this country, and we're going to vote Republicans out of office. Look at the polling. Look at all the maps. Look at what's happening across the country, and just keep crying. Keep crying harder. It is what it is. We're going to turn this country around, because the direction that we're going in, we don't want to go in that direction. But it is what it is. Please hit the like, share, and subscribe. I appreciate it. I have content like this every night, Monday through Thursday at 10 p.m. And I appreciate you guys showing up. Please show up and hit the like, share, and subscribe. The all notification button, so you can get notified when I go live. And I appreciate you guys. I appreciate you. There's lots of people ripping off the government. There's more Republicans this time. I'm sorry. It's just more Republicans. It's proof. So I appreciate you. I appreciate you guys showing up. And I'll see you in the next one.